You think you understand control. You believe that those who shout loudest, who demand most fiercely, who rule through fear alone hold true power. How charmingly naive! The greatest rulers in history, Caesar, Napoleon, even myself in my political dealings, understood a truth that escapes the masses. The most dangerous person in any room is not the one throwing tantrums, but the one whose emotions serve as weapons, sharpened by intellect and wielded with surgical precision. Today, I shall teach you why emotional volatility, when properly harnessed, becomes the ultimate shield against manipulation and the master key to unshakable personal sovereignty. Machiavelli once said that a ruler's downfall begins not with his enemies, but with his emotions. The instant he lets anger, fear, or pride dictate his actions, he becomes predictable, and the predictable can always be controlled. When you react, you reveal your weak spots. You show others where your buttons are, where your armor cracks, and where your confidence ends. That is why the most dangerous people in any room are not the loud, impulsive ones. They are the ones who remain silent, unreadable, and calm while the world burns around them. Every time you react instantly, you hand over your power. The moment you shout back, defend yourself, or explain too much, you confirm that the other person's words struck something inside you. You think you're standing up for yourself, but you're actually showing that you can be moved. And once people know how to move you, they can manipulate you forever. Machiavelli understood that silence is a weapon sharper than any sword. In The Prince, he warns that the ruler must never appear desperate or emotional before his subjects. Why? Because desperation invites rebellion, and emotion invites exploitation. A man who can remain unmoved in the face of provocation terrifies people. His calmness is not peace, it's control. Think about the moments when someone insults you. Most people will defend themselves immediately, rush to correct the insult, or lash out in anger. But the Machiavellian mind understands that the insult is bait. The real power is in not reacting. You look them in the eyes, you stay silent, and you let them wonder why their words didn't shake you. In that moment, the balance of power shifts. You are no longer being tested, you are being feared. Control is not about domination of others. It starts with domination of yourself. If your emotions can be provoked, then your strategy will always fail. The person who angers you controls you. The person who makes you jealous owns your focus. The person who makes you anxious directs your energy. Machiavelli would say, "You are no longer the ruler, you have become the ruled." The art of power begins with emotional discipline. When a storm hits, the ruler must not become the storm. He must become the mountain that stands still while everything else trembles. That calmness is not a sign of weakness. It is deliberate, chosen, and strategic. It's a psychological performance that makes others doubt their influence over you. Imagine two leaders negotiating. One speaks fast, his tone rising, his hands moving as he tries to assert dominance. The other sits in silence, studying every word, his expression unreadable, his pauses heavy and deliberate. Who holds the power? The one who reacts or the one who observes? Power belongs to the observer, always. To master control is to master your response to provocation. People will try to insult you, trick you, pressure you, or tempt you. They'll use charm, fear, or guilt. But none of these tactics work if you refuse to react instantly. A Machiavellian mind delays its reaction. It pauses, observes, and chooses its move with precision. Because reaction is instinct, but control is strategy. When you feel that urge to speak, to defend, to argue, pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting or am I responding? The difference defines who holds the power. Reaction is emotional. Response is calculated. The world worships those who stay centered while others lose control. The calm leader, the silent negotiator, the man who doesn't flinch under pressure. These are the people others cannot manipulate. Their calmness is unsettling. Their silence forces others to fill the space with words, confessions, and mistakes. And this is what Machiavelli understood better than anyone in politics, in power, in human nature. The one who reacts first loses. The one who stays still watches everything. Because silence is never empty. It's full of control, calculation, and invisible dominance. So when you feel anger rising, when someone tests your patience, when the world demands a reaction, remember, that's the trap. The goal is not to suppress emotion, but to use it as armor. Let them think you are indifferent. Let them believe you are unaffected. For the moment they realize they cannot move you, they will begin to fear you. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something that most men never learn in their entire lives. That emotions, when left unchecked, are the invisible chains that keep you enslaved to others. He saw rulers lose their thrones, generals lose their wars, and lovers lose their sanity, all because they were attached to outcomes, to praise, or to people. And that attachment made them weak. To Machiavelli, true power began where attachment ended. He believed that a ruler must never tie his peace to anything outside himself. Because whatever you depend on controls you. The moment you need someone's approval, you hand them the power to destroy your confidence. The moment you need an outcome, you surrender your strategy to desperation. And the moment you need to be loved, you become a servant to those who can withdraw it. Emotional detachment is not coldness, it's control. It's the ability to walk through chaos without letting it claim your clarity. The detached man is not unfeeling. He simply refuses to let his feelings decide his fate. He doesn't chase validation, he doesn't beg for loyalty, and he doesn't panic when things fall apart, because he knows that emotional dependence makes a man predictable. And the predictable can always be defeated. Machiavelli wrote that a wise prince must act with both intellect and passion, but his passion must always serve his reason. The mind must lead, the heart must follow. Detachment gives you this power to use emotion like a tool, rather than be used by it. Think about it. If someone can make you angry, they can control your behavior. If someone can flatter you, they can shape your decisions. But if no emotion can sway you, no person can manipulate you. The emotionally detached individual moves like a strategist. He doesn't react to the game, he studies it. He doesn't need to win every small battle because he's focused on the war. People who act from emotion seek immediate relief. People who act from detachment seek lasting dominance. The difference is patience. The detached man is patient because he is not desperate. And when you are not desperate, your presence alone becomes intimidating. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, shouting, mocking, trying to get a rise out of you. The average person reacts instantly, caught in the moment. But the Machiavellian man simply observes. His silence is heavy, his expression unreadable, his mind already calculating his next move. That stillness is not weakness, it's power disguised as calm. The other person, desperate for reaction, begins to unravel. You have just won without saying a single word. Emotional detachment gives you psychological leverage. When others depend on how you'll react, and you remain unpredictable, you occupy their thoughts. You force them to overthink, to second-guess, to lose composure. Machiavelli would say that control does not come from force, but from influence over perception. And detachment gives you that influence. When people cannot read what you feel, they begin to project their fears and desires onto you, and that's where your advantage begins. But understand this clearly. Detachment does not mean apathy. It does not mean you stop caring about success, love, or life. It means you stop clinging to them. You act with full intention, but with zero attachment to the result. Because when you no longer depend on something to define you, it can no longer control you. That is the essence of power. A man who practices emotional detachment walks differently. His energy feels grounded, his words are few but precise, and his presence feels mysterious. He's not chasing, he's choosing. And that difference makes people want his approval even more. The less you need, the more valuable you become. That is the law of power Machiavelli understood centuries ago. In his eyes, the ruler who stands firm when fortune turns against him is the ruler who survives. The man who loses his composure at the first sign of betrayal, loss, or rejection is already defeated. Detachment allows you to adapt, to rebuild, to move forward without emotional ruin. It keeps your hands steady when others tremble. It keeps your mind sharp when others drown in feelings. So when you feel your emotions trying to take over, pause. Observe them like an outsider. Do not identify with them. They are storms passing through your sky, not the sky itself. The more you practice this distance, the more you realize that your emotions are tools, not masters. And once you understand that, you become dangerous, because nothing and no one can move you off balance. Machiavelli understood something that most never dare to admit, that emotion, when used correctly, is not a weakness. It is a weapon. Most people believe power belongs to those who feel nothing. But Machiavelli saw the truth. It belongs to those who know when to feel, how to show it, and why to use it. Emotion, in the hands of the undisciplined, destroys, but in the hands of a strategist, it conquers. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that men are ruled more by appearance than by reality. He meant that people respond to what they see, not what is true. This is why the ruler must master the art of emotional theater. He doesn't need to be merciful. He only needs to appear merciful. He doesn't have to be fearless. He only has to look fearless. Because perception shapes power, not truth. Most people show emotions without control. They wear their hearts on their sleeves, reacting to every situation in full view of others. Their joy, anger, jealousy, or sadness are visible to all, and that makes them transparent. Machiavelli would call that foolishness, because when others can read your emotions, they can predict you. And once they can predict you, they can manipulate you. The Machiavellian mind understands that emotion must be worn like armor, not skin. You show it when it serves a purpose. You conceal it when it exposes you. Every expression, every sigh, every smile becomes a move on the chessboard of influence. When you want to gain trust, you show warmth. When you want to inspire fear, you display coldness. When you want to rally others, you show passion. But you are always the one in control of the mask. Emotion, in this sense, becomes performance. And the most powerful people in history have been master performers. Julius Caesar wept in public to appear humane, even when he was ruthless in war. Kings smiled at their enemies while secretly plotting their downfall. Leaders have long understood what Machiavelli taught, that people follow emotion more than reason. They want to feel inspired, valued, or terrified. And if you can control what others feel, you can control what they do. The difference between emotional weakness and strategic emotion is intention. Emotional weakness reacts without thinking. Strategic emotion chooses how to feel, how long to feel it, and when to release it. Imagine someone insulting you in front of others. The average man would become visibly angry, defend himself, or shout back. The Machiavellian man would let the insult hang in the air, study the crowd, and then decide how to respond for maximum impact. Maybe he laughs to disarm. Maybe he smiles to confuse. Maybe he stays silent to intimidate. Each choice is a strategy, not a reaction. Machiavelli understood that fear, love, pity, and admiration are currencies in the economy of power. A ruler who knows how to make people feel these emotions at will is far more powerful than one who simply demands obedience. To influence someone, you must know which emotion controls them and which emotion controls you. If you know neither, you are not leading, you are being led. To master strategic emotion, you must first know your own emotional landscape. Observe yourself. When do you lose control? What kind of people provoke you? Which compliments make you lower your guard? Machiavelli would advise that these are your vulnerabilities, and you must guard them. Once you know what drives your emotions, you can begin to weaponize them. Use empathy when it helps you read the hearts of others. Show anger when it reminds people that your kindness has limits. Express confidence when you need to silence doubt. Every emotion becomes deliberate. Every display becomes political. This is how rulers maintain their authority, by turning emotion into a calculated form of communication. Machiavelli never suggested that emotion should be erased. He only warned against letting it command your reason. The wise man does not suppress his feelings. He directs them. He doesn't explode with anger. He channels it into power. He doesn't drown in sadness. He turns it into silence that unsettles others. He doesn't cling to affection. He uses it to influence loyalty. In the court of power, emotion is performance, and performance is control. When others see you express emotion only when it serves your purpose, they start to respect your discipline and fear your unpredictability. They realize you are not reacting, you are orchestrating. And that realization alone changes the balance of power forever. Machiavelli observed something cruelly honest about human nature. Most people are ruled by their attachments. They worship love as if it makes them noble, and they despise hate as if it makes them evil. But both emotions, when uncontrolled, make a person a slave. Love and hate are the two greatest manipulators of human behavior. They cloud judgment, distort perception, and turn wise men into fools. And Machiavelli's warning was simple: never let either one guide your decisions. To love blindly is to surrender control. To hate blindly is to lose reason. Machiavelli understood that the truly powerful man does not love or hate with his heart. He uses both emotions with precision. He knows when to appear affectionate to build alliances, and when to appear ruthless to inspire fear. He does not feel at random. He acts with calculation. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Because love is fragile, built on emotion and expectation. It can vanish in a moment of disappointment, but fear is more reliable. It commands respect even when affection fades. Yet, he also knew that pure cruelty without strategy breeds rebellion, so the ruler must not be heartless, only controlled. He must master his emotions the way a swordsman masters his weapon, say, knowing when to strike, when to hold, and when to simply show it without using it. Think about how love blinds people. When you love someone or something too deeply, you stop seeing reality clearly. You make excuses, you ignore warnings, and you bend your own rules to protect your attachment. A Machiavellian mind knows that obsession, even with something good, is dangerous. Because once emotion becomes obsession, you are no longer choosing, you are being pulled. You will tolerate disrespect, betray your values, and sabotage your goals just to preserve what you love. That is not loyalty, that is weakness disguised as devotion. And hate is love turned inside out. It consumes focus and poisons strategy. The man who hates acts not to win, but to destroy, and that impulse often destroys him first. Hatred makes you reactive, sloppy, predictable. You stop thinking about your long-term advantage and start chasing emotional satisfaction. Machiavelli would say that hate is a luxury the intelligent cannot afford. You can use the energy of hate, but you cannot let it possess your judgment. The emotionally dangerous man does not deny that he feels love or hate. He simply refuses to be owned by them. He can love someone deeply yet remain unshaken if they betray him. He can despise an enemy without allowing that hatred to consume his discipline. His emotions serve his mind, they never command it. That is what makes him unbreakable. In moments of betrayal or insult, most people choose to react through emotion. They lash out, they seek revenge, they want to prove their worth. But Machiavelli would have smiled at that chaos, because he understood that revenge is often a trap for the impatient. The wise man does not retaliate in anger. He observes, waits, and strikes when the timing benefits him most. Emotion demands instant relief. Strategy demands patience. Machiavelli believed that the ruler must sometimes appear compassionate, even when his heart is cold. Because people follow warmth, they are drawn to it. But that warmth must be controlled. You can give kindness, but never dependence. You can show affection, but never weakness. The moment your emotions become visible to others, they become tools others can use against you. Love can be used to build loyalty when shown strategically. A leader who makes his people feel valued earns their devotion. But that same devotion must never blind him to their changing nature. Human loyalty shifts with circumstance. That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to rely on fear over affection, because fear endures where love fades. And yet, even fear must be measured. Too much of it and people conspire. Too little and they grow disobedient. Balance is the art. So when love tempts you to compromise your strength, or hate provokes you to lose control, remember this: every emotion is a tool. You are the craftsman. The moment you become the tool, your power is gone. Machiavelli understood that the ruler who acts out of love or hate will always be predictable. But the one who acts out of reason, using love and hate as instruments of control, becomes untouchable. That is why he studied human nature so ruthlessly, not to destroy emotion, but to command it. Because the man who can smile at betrayal, who can forgive without forgetting, who can care without depending, becomes the one thing the world cannot manipulate. He becomes sovereign over himself. Machiavelli understood that the calmest man in the room always holds the greatest power. In a world where everyone reacts, where tempers flare and pride screams to be heard, silence becomes terrifying. Emotional coldness is not about lacking feeling. It's about mastering it so deeply that no one can predict or provoke you. And when people can't predict you, they start to fear you. That fear becomes control, and control becomes power. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must learn to be both lion and fox, the lion to strike, the fox to outthink. Emotional coldness is the bridge between those two. It gives you the patience of the fox and the restraint of the lion waiting to pounce. Most people reveal themselves through emotion. They speak too fast, react too soon, and show too much. Their faces betray their thoughts before they even speak. The Machiavellian mind, however, knows how to conceal itself behind a mask of calm. Imagine standing in a room full of chaos, voices rising, people arguing, emotions boiling. Everyone wants to be heard, to prove a point, to feel powerful. But the one who stands silently, observing, untouched by the storm, is the one everyone eventually turns to, not because he demanded authority, but because he embodies it. Emotional coldness creates a psychological gravity. People are drawn to it because they cannot understand it. They project strength, wisdom, and mystery onto you simply because you reveal nothing. When you are emotionally cold, you are no longer reacting, you are studying. Every insult, every compliment, every manipulation attempt becomes data. You read the room like a tactician, identifying weaknesses in others while guarding your own. That level of composure is unsettling to emotional people. They start to overcompensate, to talk more, to reveal more. They try to test your silence. But the longer you remain unmoved, the more they crumble under the weight of their own emotions. That is the hidden power of coldness. It makes others destroy themselves trying to reach you. Machiavelli would say that appearances shape perception more than truth. And nothing appears more powerful than emotional stillness. When people cannot read your reactions, they cannot manipulate you. When they cannot predict your feelings, they cannot plan against you. You become a mirror in which others only see their own insecurities. This is why emotionally cold individuals often seem intimidating without trying. They project an aura of inner dominance that demands respect. But emotional coldness is not about cruelty or indifference. It's about emotional discipline. It's about choosing your reactions carefully, releasing nothing that weakens your position. The emotionally cold man feels everything, but he processes it privately. He takes his anger and turns it into strategy. He takes his pain and turns it into focus. He takes his fear and turns it into preparation. To others, he looks unshakable, but inside, he simply mastered the art of transformation. Think of a negotiator who never raises his voice, a leader who listens more than he speaks, a rival who smiles when challenged. They unsettle people not because they are loud, but because they are unreadable. That unreadability forces others to fill in the blanks with imagination, and imagination is far more powerful than reality. Machiavelli knew this. He knew that the silent man seems dangerous because no one knows what he's thinking. And when people don't know what you're thinking, they start to assume you're always thinking something greater than they are. Emotional coldness also creates distance, and distance is a weapon in itself. When you don't emotionally engage with every situation, you keep your perspective sharp. You can step back, assess the battlefield, and act only when the timing benefits you. Emotional people rush into fights. Cold people choose which fights are worth their energy. Emotional people argue to be right. Cold people wait to win. That is the essence of psychological power, not being reactive, but selective. There is also an elegance in coldness. It carries a sense of authority that words can't match. You can't fake it, it comes from inner mastery. People may test you with gossip, provocation, or emotional manipulation, but when you meet their chaos with calm indifference, they lose the weapon they hope to use. They can only influence those who can be emotionally touched. And when they realize they can't reach you, they start respecting you, even fearing you. Machiavelli would remind us that fear is not about aggression. It's about control. Emotional coldness commands a subtle kind of fear, not through violence, but through restraint. It forces people to watch their words around you, to consider their actions, to calculate their tone. You become the silent authority in every interaction. People start to wonder what lies behind your composure, and that curiosity alone gives you psychological leverage. To be emotionally cold is to be untouchable in a world addicted to reaction. It is to remain still while others reveal their hands. It is to project calm when others expect collapse. And in that stillness, you gain something greater than comfort. You gain command. Machiavelli believed that the man who watches the world without being consumed by it is the one who truly rules it. He understood that most people are trapped inside their own reactions. They are participants in chaos, never seeing beyond the next moment. But the wise man, the strategist, removes himself from the noise. He steps outside of emotion, ego, and impulse and becomes the observer. And in doing so, he gains control over those who cannot do the same. The difference between the observer and the participant is awareness. The participant moves with emotion. The observer moves with vision. The participant reacts to the game. The observer studies it. Machiavelli saw that power does not belong to the one who shouts the loudest or moves the fastest. It belongs to the one who sees everything before acting. Because when you see clearly, you don't need to fight for control. Control comes to you. Imagine two men in a conflict. One is yelling, his pride burning, his energy spilling out into every word. The other stands quietly, watching, measuring, saying almost nothing. To the ordinary eye, the first seems powerful because he is loud, but to the Machiavellian mind, the second man holds all the strength. He is not wasting energy. He is gathering information. Every outburst reveals something: weakness, insecurity, fear, and the observer takes note of all of it. By the time he finally acts, he knows his opponent better than the opponent knows himself. Machiavelli would say that in politics, as in life, power belongs to those who understand human behavior better than humans understand themselves. The only way to gain that understanding is through observation. You cannot see patterns if you are part of them. You cannot analyze emotion if you are drowning in it. Observation requires distance, a mental detachment that lets you study people's words, motives, and habits without reacting to them. That distance is your weapon. Most people crave involvement. They want to speak, to prove, to be seen. But the more they speak, the more they reveal. The observer lets others talk first. He listens not for their words, but for their intentions hidden beneath them. Every tone, every hesitation, every contradiction becomes data. People expose themselves constantly, they just don't notice it. But the Machiavellian observer does. He listens like a hunter waiting for movement in the forest. He sees before others even realize they've been seen. This ability to observe is not about cold detachment from humanity, it's about control over perception. Machiavelli knew that people act from predictable motivations: fear, desire, pride, envy. If you can watch long enough without judgment, their patterns become obvious. You begin to know how they will act before they act. That is the advantage of the observer. You stop being surprised by people. You start predicting them. The participant spends his energy trying to change others. The observer saves his energy by understanding them. When you understand someone's needs, you can control how they behave. You can withhold, reward, or manipulate outcomes without ever revealing your hand. The observer doesn't force situations. He orchestrates them silently. His moves are invisible until it's too late for others to respond. To become the observer, you must train your mind to slow down. The world moves fast, but power exists in patience. Watch people's reactions, not their statements. Observe how they behave under pressure, not how they act in comfort. Notice who gets silent when the topic turns serious, who laughs too loud, who interrupts, who flatters. These tiny details are signals. They expose loyalty, insecurity, and ambition long before words ever do. Machiavelli often studied men in the courts of Florence, politicians, soldiers, nobles, and he learned that those who could not control their emotions always betrayed their intentions. But those who watched, waited, and studied could move pieces in the background while everyone else fought on the surface. Observation is the foundation of manipulation, and manipulation is the art of politics. Becoming the observer also means mastering your own behavior. You cannot study others clearly if your mind is clouded by your own impulses. You must observe yourself the same way you observe others, dissecting your reactions, questioning your motives, controlling your urges. The more you understand your own emotional patterns, the easier it becomes to see them in others. The man who knows himself fully becomes immune to most forms of manipulation, because no one can use against him what he has already seen within himself. When you stop reacting to every situation, people start to reveal who they truly are around you. They feel comfortable showing their real face because they see no competition, no threat. That's when their true motives come out. The observer wins by patience. He collects truth while others waste time displaying illusion. Machiavelli's wisdom was clear. Those who rush to speak lose leverage. Those who wait to understand gain it. The emotionally dangerous man knows this. He doesn't fight every battle. He studies them. He doesn't chase approval. He watches who gives it freely and who withholds it for power. He doesn't try to control people by force. He lets them expose themselves through their own words and emotions. And when the time comes to act, his strike is silent, precise, and unstoppable, because while everyone else was busy reacting, he was simply observing. Conclusion: as a narrator, calm, powerful, reflective tone. So, what have we uncovered? Machiavelli's true lesson is not about coldness or cruelty. It's about mastery. Emotional danger is not recklessness, it's control. It's the ability to feel everything, yet reveal nothing. To live in a world of manipulation, chaos, and deceit, yet remain untouched by it. The emotionally dangerous man does not depend on others to define his worth. He cannot be broken by insult, swayed by praise, or destroyed by betrayal. He moves through life like a strategist on a battlefield, aware, calm, deliberate. People around him may shout, threaten, or tempt, but he remains unmoved, and that stillness terrifies them, because emotional stability is the rarest form of power. Machiavelli knew that the world belongs to those who control perception, not those controlled by passion. When you stop reacting, you start commanding. When you stop explaining, you start influencing. And when you stop needing others to approve you, they start fearing your independence. The truth is simple: nobody can control you if you are emotionally dangerous. Because danger is not found in aggression, it is found in composure. It's found in silence that cannot be provoked, in eyes that see through pretense, in the calmness that feels like a storm waiting to happen. That is Machiavellian power. Not in the sword, but in the mind behind it. Not in the noise, but in the man who never flinches. Be that man. Become emotionally dangerous.